be part of the living room conversation. And Manuel is going to join us, and Mr. Jesse Lee is going to join us, and the Tennessee Four is going to join us. Y'all having a good time? Aren't they amazing? Oh, do y'all ever miss music like this? Dang, I miss it on radio so much. I do. But we've got a whole rest of the show that's going to be full. We're going to have a little intermission shortly, but we're going to do a little interview first to kind of let you understand a little bit about it. And they promised that, they said, don't worry, Miss Devon. I like when they call me Miss Devon. I've earned that stuff. I said I'm going to be 62 in a couple of weeks. And I said, I'm going to tell you, Manuel taught me this. 60 is the new sexy. Where are my people? Yes, my girls. And Manuel says, when do you turn 70? He said, then you meet the woman of your dreams. See, look who he brought. Manuel's the only guy I know that can marry up like you do. She's amazing. And so we're going to get to meet Manuel and get to know him a little bit more. How many of you already know Manuel? He casts a long shadow, doesn't he? We're going to invite him up here on the side, and he and Mr. Jesse Lee to come on up and be part of what we do. And the Tennessee Four, bring them up here. And they promised me that Manuel and I would have our own chairs. We have the comfy chairs. I said, I love that. I love that. All right. There's some microphones right over this side. They've got them over there. There's some wireless mics. All right.
Hello.
And Manuel, this is your seat
Hello.
right here.
Hello.
You're right here. There's your microphone. You look fantastic. Fantastic. Yeah.
I'm only 90.
90. I cannot believe this. And still working. Still making incredible.
I thank God.
Every day of my life,
all
thanks
the
to God.
great things that we believe in.
It is. Manuel is responsible for making more careers just by making them. He made creating a brand a thing before it was a thing. Okay, we gotta look at this. Jesse Lee modeling the brand. Okay, we gotta start out. The Man in Black was not Johnny's idea, was it?
Not at all.
How did that happen?
Well, because in those times, in the early 50s, there were a lot of dreamers in the music world. And you know that the one that writes the song is sometimes a real script writer. So the dreamer, you gotta respect that guy. I mean, they walk on soulless boots on the highway with a guitar over their backs, and I learned to love them. In the case of John, I'll tell you what, we both learned to create that great brotherhood. And, you know, the ups and downs, you know, the kids can buy a shirt. You can ask Marty Stewart for that, you know. But then there's guys like me that I love life, I love people, and I love artists. Something that I have never in my life been a dreamer. Honestly. I'm a guy that likes business. You know, come on.
Is it true that you're the one that put Elvis in his first jumpsuit?
Of course. So what? You know, he didn't even know what a jumpsuit was.
He thought it was
He
overalls,
says,
right?
what's that? Come on, it's like a pair of overalls without straps. It's one piece. Like a dancer suit? I said, like a dancer suit. And she danced so weird that people in Mississippi, his hometown, hated him because they surprised him going to see Little Richard, a king of rock and roll, so he could learn the dancing. And then that's what happened on television in 1957. Our television didn't allow him to show his leg work.
His leg work, yeah.
And in the case of John, going back to the beautiful story that I love, although I knew all those guys, they were all together, they were young kids, you know, Chris, all of those people. John was a special human being. He had the potential of a dark prince on a niche on a sidewalk. He was so serious and he was so honest, and he didn't allow too much gameplay. And when he sort of made it, right? He says, brother, I'm gonna need like 9 suits now. And I'm gonna be paying for this one. No kidding. I said, well.
9 suits.
So I made him and sent them to him, and you know his way. I was very close to the mic and said, my name is Johnny Cash. So he said, this is Johnny Cash, brother. I said, I can hear your voice. So what? So I got the suits, but there's something weird. Like what? How come they are all black? I said, because that's gonna be your business from now on, brother. You know, I'll tell you, but I was trying to kind of laugh at his not knowledge why they were all black. I said, there was a special sale in black clothing, and I took advantage of it, and hello. Now you got the suit, now you gotta pay for it, and no, brother, I just wanna know why. I says, I told you, you're like the prince of the wall or something. You're like a vampire guy. You always scare us with your seriousness. Our conversations were always gaming and looking at the chicks or whatever, we were doing. And he was always very serious, very correct. And that's what I made for you, all those suits. Black. So, what do you really think about this, John? He says, I'm going to tell you something, brother. I need at least 3 suits every week because I have a 52-week contract. No kidding. And by the way, the color is no longer the subject. Black, black, black from now on. And that's what I know about John. Besides that, we became great friends, brothers with Willie, with everybody, Waylon, all those kids trying to make it, and I will never forget my brother. The greatest thing that you need to know about this. I was to go and see him at his house in his last days. So I knocked on the door, And his older sister or somebody that was taking care of that, they let me in. So I said, well, okay, well, tell her that I wish the best in the future. Well, I walked out, then the window pounded towards the outside. And he comes, John, and says, and he has an axe, honestly, an axe in his hand. He says, next time that you come to my house and somebody denies you entrance, I'm gonna put it out here. Break the goddamn windows and doors. I love him. And I hope you never forget what I just told you.
Those are the stories that make it. Now, Paul Lime, who's on drums, 500 million hit records sold. 524 million. Okay, the bio is updated now. Dad, go, Paul Lime. Now, let's talk a little bit about how the Tennessee Four came to be in this conglomeration.
Is one of those magical things that happens in life. There's a promoter from Denmark, Henrik Knudsen, that we've been doing Elvis TCB shows with for almost 20 years. And he built an exact replica of Graceland on his property there in Randers, Denmark. From the front, you can look, if you look up Randers Memphis Mansion. Graceland sued him over using the word Graceland, so he had to change the name of the mansion to Memphis Mansion. It's a great burger place on one side. It's got all Elvis memorabilia on the other side. So anyway, he puts on these concerts every year. We would do Elvis concerts for him with the TCB band, James Burton and Jerry Sheff, Ron Tutt, myself, and Glenn Harden. And so he called, it was going to be Johnny Cash's 90th birthday, 2 years ago? Two years ago, 21 I think it was, February the 26th, I believe it was. And he said, did you ever work with Johnny Cash? I said, yes, I did. And he said, can you put together an original cast band like the TCB band was with Elvis? And I said, I think I can. This is Nashville, Tennessee. We got the greatest, most experienced players in the world that have played with everybody on the planet. So I called Kerry. He said, yep, 5 years. I said, who's our bass player? He said, Dave Rowe. It's got to be Dave Rowe. He was with him the last 12 years of his career. And so we said, God, who's going to get to sing? Who's going to be the singer? So I was going through different singers in my mind. And I was doing a project with a guitar player named Dave Cleveland. And we're sitting there waiting for the bus to pick us up to take us to the studio. And I said, we're working on this Johnny Cash project. And I was on the phone literally calling someone. Can't think of his name right now. All I can think of is Thomas Gabriel. But anyway, so I was literally on the phone, and he said, no, you got to hear this. And he played me a demo that he played guitar, and Thomas had sung on it. It sounded like he had his own style, but it had that magical Cash thing to it. And I just went, and I turned my phone off, and I went, play that again. He played it again. I listened to Thomas again, and it was just like, to me, it was magical. Right at that instant, the promoter from Denmark called. That very instant, he called, and he said, Paul, do we have a singer yet? Do we have the band together? I want to get this thing going. I said, you got to hear this. And I put the phone. He went, holy, we got to have him. I said, my next phone call. So we called Thomas, and he was all in. He was excited about it, and that's how the Tennessee Four came to be. And I'd also have to say, tonight is our very first night. Let me back up a little bit. We did the Grand Ole Opry 3 months ago. 2 standing ovations at the Grand Ole Opry with Dave Rowe. 68 hours later, Dave Rowe had a Widowmaker, fell off a ladder at his house. He was dead before he hit the ground. So it set us back a couple months. We didn't know whether to continue or not. Then we all talked about it, and we all agreed that it was worth pursuing. So then we're going, okay, who do we get? It's got to be a Johnny Cash guy. It's got to be a true Johnny Cash guy, because we got blood on stage now. We got to have all Johnny. So Dennis Crouch did Johnny's last 2 albums. There's a microphone right there if anybody wants to help me out here. We have Dennis Crouch. Dennis is a fabulous bass player, works with Diana Krall and Harry Connick, and he's one of the original founding members of the Time Jumpers. Are you familiar with the Time Jumpers in Nashville? Founding member, and incredible bass player, incredible pedigree, and a Cash pedigree to boot. So I'm going to shut up now and give it back to Devon.
I love these stories. And that's the way that life is, and it changes. And Johnny Cash, he cast a long shadow. I'll never forget him driving. The Highwaymen drove up to Emerald Entertainment, where I was working at the studio. They were recording an album. Chris got out, and he was cute. Waylon got out, and he was reckless. Johnny Cash got out, and he looked like a freaking mountain. The doors went open, and I heard the theme from The Good and the Bad and the Ugly. The wind blew his hair in that duster coat that you put him in. He got off the bus looking like Johnny Cash. It was just awesome. Jessie Lee is here with us, the keeper of the traditional country flame on Lower Broadway. The lead singer of a band called Brazil Billy. And do you have the microphone there? His story is so unbelievable. Jessie came to visit me at WSM Radio one afternoon, and to come to America, not knowing the language, not having a bankroll. I want you to talk about coming to this country and to now end up here on this stage. It's an interesting story.
Well, legally, we should say.
Legally, yes.
Well, yeah, I came to the United States in 1984. So February the 2nd, or the 5th, forgive me, it will be 40 years that I've been in the United States. Yeah, we should.
From Sao Paulo?
São Paulo, Brazil. The poor boy, you grow up with all the things you see on television, the movies and all of that. And I've seen those Trans Ams and those big Lincoln Continentals like I drive now. And but I came here, I had a reference letter, if you will, and I was headed out west to Provo, Utah, where I was going to meet the Osmond family. But when I arrived, I was robbed in Miami, Florida. So I had no money, took my guitar and everything that I brought with me. And I ended up in Peoria, Illinois, of all places.
That's where we all end up eventually.
Yeah, that's right. So yeah, I have some good memories. It was a hard time. I remember seeing, as we left Florida, I noticed that the ground was getting covered up with some white stuff. And I'm thinking, it's cotton, right? In my mind, I'm thinking cotton. And but this cotton just kept growing. And it was about this tall once we got to Illinois. And that's when I realized it was snow. So I never seen snow before. I wasn't prepared for it. I wasn't dressed for it. And but the people were really nice. One lady that was on the bus with me, she bought me a hamburger, a cheeseburger, and a root beer. My first root beer ever. So that was really nice. And I've always had this idea that in America the streets are paved with gold. We always feel that way when you from other countries. But then, I was fascinated with the whole thing. I was scared. I didn't know what I was going to do. And then after being robbed, things really got bad. But this family came, picked me up, took to their home, And on the way home, I was fascinated with a cemetery that had no walls. And there were no walls around the cemetery. And then I looked over to the right, and there is a lake. But the Americans were walking on water. Really. It was February, so the lake was frozen. And I'm thinking, holy cow, they walk on water. So that's how it was. That was the beginning. That was 3 days in America, and I was still thinking that. But, you know, it has been quite a road, and like you said, to be here tonight on stage with these wonderful musicians. Manuel was the first friend I made in Nashville when I came in '94. And I have a terrible story. Johnny Cash was walking towards me one day, and he was looking right at me, and he was coming at me, and I was so nervous, I was so shy, I went the other way. Never got a chance to visit with him like I should have. I did the same thing with Neil Diamond too. Yeah. And he actually walked up to me and introduced himself. He sure did. And I said, well, I know who you are. And that was the end of it.
It's scary, right? It's scary, right?
It is. And Johnny, he just had this charisma about him. You know, he would walk in a place and everybody knew he was in there. It was like the temperature would change in the room. Everything was like, wow. So.
He had presence.
Yes, presence, charisma. But, you know, in 95, I formed a band called Brazil Billy. And we've been playing Roberts now for 29 years straight. And,
For those of you that don't know, Jesse owns Roberts Western World downtown. And he started singing there with Old Man Roberts, started singing there, cleaning the toilets during the daytime and singing on stage at night. He worked his way up from the very, very, very bottom in America to own Roberts Western World, one of the number one honky tonk in Nashville, Tennessee.
And if you get a chance to read Jesse's book, it's amazing. Your story is unbelievable. We have 2 amazing Coming to America stories right here on stage with us. And I think that's pretty darn amazing. And you're part of the story tonight too.
yeah. And you know one thing I want to say? This is, to me, a country where the streets are paved with gold. What we have is a bunch of ungrateful people who don't realize that. So, they don't know. They have no idea what it is out there, what's out there in the world. And they want to complain about everything. And it's just sad, it's very sad. But I love this country. And I didn't speak a word of English when I first came. And I'm a huge fan of Marty Robbins. You know, I've seen a lot of Marty Robbins stuff. I didn't quite understand why Paul, other than being a dear friend and a brother, invited me to be here tonight. Okay.
Well, because you're really pretty.
Oh.
See, once you turn 60, you can be adorable and inappropriate all in the same breath. I don't even care. He is, isn't he?
Anyway, thank you so much for having me.
Well, we've got to pass the microphone over there to Thomas because I want Thomas to, Manuel, can you hand Thomas your microphone for a second, right beside you? Yes. I have to ask, well, first of all, thank you for being here tonight and thank you for sharing these amazing songs. When did you start traveling? And when were you on the road with your grandfather?
Yeah, as a kid, my mother was very young, so she's moved to Tennessee and spent a lot of time with my grandparents. So on the road, we would go a lot. Kind of the fishbowl thing, pull up in a bus, different places, and just a bunch of faces, and yeah, it was a lot of fun growing up. It was unconventional to say the least. Yeah. So, but I don't know if I heard your whole question.
You know, I want to know, and I bet everybody wants to know, what was Johnny's grandfather name? Did you call him Pawpaw or what? I mean, I gotta know.
That changed quite a bit. Actually, it was Pawpaw in the very beginning, like Pawpaw, that type of thing. And then it was Grandpa, and then it got to Gramps, and he didn't really care for that much. So it went back to Grandpa, and that's where it stayed.
What was he like as a grandfather figure?
Scary as hell. But at the same time, I mean, he was funny, he was fair, he was all about truth, which is, you know, I always respected him. You know, everything about him was real. There was never, there was nothing about him that was stage and then Johnny. And it was always the same all the time. And I always respected that. Excuse me. You know, he was stern, but he could also be very funny. He'd spend a lot of time with us alone. You know, we'd go out shooting or whatever, and in the woods. He loved being in the woods. We had a lot of the same. We had a lot of the same issues, addiction. I was in addiction very, very early in life, 11, and he was always very understanding, always very supportive, never judged, never, you know, he was always very active with that. And, you know, he was fair, he was true, he was, literally, he was truth. That's what he was. And you know, so, you know, that's kind of what Jesse was saying a minute ago. I hear a lot of, well, if Johnny was alive today, this and that and the other. No, Johnny was about truth, man. It didn't matter what it was as long as it was truth. It didn't matter what, it didn't matter. There was no gray area. Just wasn't.
You know, his writing and all the things that John Carter found, those writings in a drawer and turned it into those two beautiful albums.
I've got some of those myself.
They're just amazing, and you realize what a poet he was. Just incredible poet. I mean, he spoke in these words. And what did he teach you as a songwriter?
In about 94 or so, I started out in metal music, and he had a studio, quite famous studio actually, but he had a studio at the time. It was a bench that I put together, and he had a little DAT and ADAT and everything. It was very just his, you know. But he gave me free range. He said, you know, I said, I'd love to put some tracks down. I've got some songs, and I played them for him, and he thought they were pretty good, you know, that type of thing. So I went over there and cut like an EP, sorry, like a little six song CD or cassette, you know. And I was really proud of it. And actually, I gotta admit, it's still pretty good. But I took it to him, all proud, and I said, hey, listen to this. And he took it, he was leaving for the day, and he said, I'll take it with me and I'll listen. So all day long, I'm waiting, you know, I'm waiting and waiting. And because he, you know, he walked around all the time writing, singing, all the time, it was constant. And you know, I kind of do that some myself, but anyways, I was really excited and really proud of what I had done. And he was gone all day. Didn't see him for the rest of the day. So that, you know. So he comes back the next day, I see him pull in, and I run up, and I'm like, what'd you think? And he's like, well, what? And I was like, the cassette, you know. And he said, yeah, he said, it's pretty good. He said, meet me at the top. Meet me at the, you know, we were at the bottom. His house had several stories. He said, meet me at the front porch, we'll talk about it. I didn't expect that. I wanted, it's the best thing I've ever heard. We're gonna, you know. And he said, we sat down, he said, first of all, you need to work on some of your writing. He said, you haven't had enough experience. You haven't had enough life experience. Okay, well, you're right. And he said, not only that, he said, I think you should be a cop. Not at all what I'm looking for. And I said, I hope he's kidding, but I'm sitting there like, I don't know what that means. You know, he said, well, and one of his guards was off duty, and he brings him up and he starts talking to me about being a police. And I'm going, I gave you a tape. You know, I don't understand. And he said, you know, this business is basically, it's a crapshoot. You know, it's so hard. You've already got addiction problems. Basically, it's good enough to where if you did it now, you would be dead in no time. You know, in other words, you know, I get that.
Yeah.
And so I was a cop for 10 years, or 8 years. And luckily I went to prison afterwards because, well, seriously, because I wrote all my songs in prison. But, yes, this is this. Yeah, but the thing about it is, before he passed, one of the last talks we had was he didn't really apologize for it, but he said, you need to get back to music. He said you need to get back to music. He said, in other words, kind of sorry for, because by that time I'd been out of police work, been in trouble, and you know, luckily he never saw me go to prison. But I wrote thousands of songs in prison, so you know, it's to get back to your question, how did he influence me? Life experience. I had to have a lot of life experience. I had to go be dead for 10 years to get the ideas, you know. Yeah.
Had to find the truth. Had to find the truth. Well, many years ago, when I was working with Jerry House, speaking about Johnny's sense of humor, I answered about 400 phone calls a morning as the producer of that show. And that morning, Winona had released the fact that she was expecting a child. Nobody knew who the daddy was. She wasn't saying. All these people were calling in, and Jerry said, I'll give a reward, a prize, if someone will tell me who her baby daddy is. So I get a phone call. 98 WSIX. Devon, this is Johnny Cash. I am the father of Winona's love child. But so many people pretended to be Johnny Cash, I hung up on him. So he calls back and says, Devon, don't hang up. It actually is Johnny Cash, and I'm the father of Winona's love child. And it was his way of just being funny, and he was listening, and he would listen from time to time and call in, and I never hung up on him again. I want you to take a look at this royalty on this stage. Was this not an amazing time here in this living room, this conversation? I want you to take note of this, because this is what we call a Nashville moment. Never ever will it be like this same group of people, the same questions, the same stories, ever again. And you were here. Yes, we were talking about...
Absolutely loved it. He loved the red, white, and blue, man. You know, I went to school to be a police officer, so, I'm a huge fan, big time. And it's just his drummer. What was the name of his drummer? Yes, I saw his show many times, and it was very inspiring because it was all about being an American. So it's great. This country is great.
Can I just say something further about Kerry real quick? Kerry Marks is one of the most sought-after guitar players on planet Earth. Really is. He's also the musical director for the Grand Ole Opry, And we've done the White House together. We've done Lincoln Center together, Kennedy Center together. This is one fine guitar player. Matter of fact, we got a
Yes.
Elvis show on Monday night at Fairlands, and he's our lead guitar player.
Aside from Johnny
Incredible,
Cash,
incredible.
played with Elton John and Natalie Cole and Olivia Newton-John, and I mean, amazing work, Mr. Kerry Marks. And of course, Paul Line, who's played with every damn body you know, and if it's been a hit record, he's been on it. Put your hands together, Mr. Paul Line. That was an amazing job tonight. Mr. Jesse Lee. And of course, down at the very end down there, Mr. Dennis Crouch. Played with Steve Earle, the Chieftains, Loretta Lynn, Vince Gill, Bob Dylan, and of course Johnny Cash, and a whole lot more. Mr. Thomas Gabriel right here. And about my favorite person on the planet, this is Mr. Manuel Cuevas. We need to come back and do just a whole night on you. Don't you think? Wouldn't you like to hear his stories just a whole night? All right, well, we're going to take a short break right now. There are meet and greet tickets still available. So if you would like to be part of this, I'd love to invite you to get a meet and greet pass, because this is a very special group and it will be a night that you will never forget. So have a good intermission, get a little refreshment, stop at the potty, and come back and join us for the second half of the show.
I ain't got a single